doing today? Welcome to my photo chat live stream where we talk about photography and catch up with the community, see how everybody's doing. I'm doing well, thanks, and I hope you guys are doing well. Yeah, a little bit of a false start half an hour ago with the stream. Uh, Sorry about that. Hopefully, some of you made it back. Anyhow, oh, let me know if the audio sounds okay, like normal. I'm syncing okay, like there's no audio sync issues, and um, and the video looks okay. But yeah, uh, Randy, I, I don't know why it's working, to be honest. I just kept clicking in and out of things, shutting things down, reopening them, and it started working. I have no idea why. I know when it happens, but I can't figure out why it's happening. It happens as soon as I click on show on stream on my app here, and then audio goes off for whatever reason. And so I would go into the Windows microphone settings, disable the microphone, then re-enable it, and then it started working. So anyhow, uh, as always, I like the audience to drive the conversation, so I leave it as an open Q&A today. And I'll talk about a few things I did this week, as always. And if there's anything you want to talk about, but let me adjust my camera just a bit. Okay. So I went to a photo show yesterday. I may go back again today. It's a Mid-Atlantic something something, but it's a pretty big show. A lot of vendors show up. Well, not a big. It's a small show, but a lot of vendors show up. They'll send one rep out. They had, Sigma was there, Fuji was there, Nikon was there. Um, a couple other, the local district camera uh, store was there, as well as used Photo Pro is there buying gear, and um, and a rental place, Aperture or something they're called. Uh, so I got to see from Sigma their 300 to 600. It's a massive lens. And then I also got to see their new 20 to 200 full frame zoom lens. That was surprisingly small. When you see it online, it looks pretty big, but it's really about the same size as the Olympus 12 to 200 lens, maybe even a little smaller, but let's just say it's about the same size. And and by all accounts, it's a very sharp lens, good range. It's a little slow, right? It's a 3.5 to 6.3, and you get to 6.3 pretty quickly, even before you hit 100 millimeters. But so it's slow, but that's why it's so small. It's always a trade-off, right? Do you want a fast lens? Then it's going to be huge, right? It's not a 70 to 200 f2.8. You know how big those can be. Uh, but yeah, it was interesting to see that, and I got to look at the some old favorites. I looked at the XT5 again, the XT50, the um, the X half. Uh, Also looked at the GFX 100 and the 100 Mark II, and how big those cameras are. And also the XE5 was sitting there. Uh, and I'm still not sold on that camera personally, uh, but I still like the thought of an XT50. The problem is it's just the lens that I use for my Fujifilm system. They're all kind of too big for those small cameras. I got the 33 1.4, the 56 1.4, the 55 to 200, and all those lenses would just be ridiculous on these tiny cameras. Although they do have their new, I guess it's a 28 millimeter 2.8, and they have another kit lens. It's like an 18 to 33. These are very, very compact lenses that are perfect for that system. But uh, what really caught my eye, and I didn't think it would, was the Sigma BF. You know, that little block of aluminum that they're trying to sell? It's such a ridiculous camera. It's beautiful, but it's ridiculous. Because you got a full frame camera that's, like the size of, like this big, and then you got to try and mount L-mount glass onto it. And there's some really nice small primes for it, 17, the 2.8s and the 2.5s, like the 17, the 20, the 40, the 45, and the 90. So you're pretty much set lens-wise. You can get some small, nice lenses or primes for it. But if you want to zoom, the the new Panasonic zoom kit lens that they made for the S9 would pair up with that nicely. The only challenge is that that lens is black, and the camera body I would get if I got one would be silver. Uh, so I like a prime as much as the next person, right? But cameras like that are small and pocketable, I really feel like I just don't want to be locked into whatever prime that I put on it. And I could bring, uh, in a small bag, two or three other primes, right? But it seems like kind of a just overkill. So I'm very, very content with my LX100 Mark II and Leica Deluxe 8, because those have built in a nice zoom range, basically an equivalent, what, 25 to 75. And it's relatively fast from 1.7 to 2.8. And I've been shooting with the Leica Deluxe 8 because someone mentioned last week or the week before, they asked that I take that camera out uh, just so I can get a feel for it because I haven't really taken it out at all. And it it's it performs as expected. The good thing is because of the fast lens, it's easier to use indoors. So I took it to an event. I wish I could show you the pictures, but I can't. But I took it to an event, an indoor event, and it was it was pretty good. I had to get used to the autofocusing system and what was best to use, but it misfocused quite a bit when I was like in continuous autofocus. But so what I did is basically I just set it to single autofocus, picked a focus point, and then just shot like that in continuous mode because they were doing some performing arts and things. Uh, and it wasn't a paid job, right? So I guess I could show you some of the pictures, but uh, and then the problem is, and it's not the camera's fault. The problem with the photos I took that evening was the lighting was so bad, and I could not use flash. So it just struggled. I just struggled to get nice photos from that event. Even though I tried, I had to use the ridiculous lighting that they had there. I was hostage to the lighting that they had there. And yeah, so I was very disappointed actually for the indoor shooting. Really wasn't any better than just using a cell phone, right? Indoors. And then but out in the field, like when I'm doing landscapes and architecture and just shooting people outside, in natural sunlight, it's perfect. It does a great job. So it's a really great like street photography camera. Uh, I would say for general purpose, but indoors, without using flash, even the little tiny flash that comes with it, I just couldn't do it. So, because they had specifically requested no flash, unfortunately. So, yeah, you really it's really hard to I can't overstate the benefit of using flash to get good images, particularly indoors. And it can't be understated how bad lighting can be when you're working indoors. First of all, it's never bright enough, right? Because you're going to be shooting at high ISO, 3200, 64 or higher all the time. And the quality of light a lot of times is really piss poor. I think they were using all LED lighting in that facility. And never mind that unless you're using high quality LED lighting like a studio lamp, because there's lots of great studio LED lighting, uh, you're just going to get crap colors out of generic LED lighting that, light bulbs and things like that. It's really important. Lighting is so important. Um, but I'll come back and try and cherry pick a few images because I took so many pictures that were just awful indoors. But outdoors, I got some decent shots, so I can show you a couple of those. But yeah, it struggled a bit in continuous autofocus indoors, uh, in the lower lighting conditions. Outdoors, I didn't have any opportunities to shoot anything that moves that I'd have to use continuous autofocus. But I do typically use continuous autofocus even on subjects that aren't moving because it normally it just locks in fine and gets the shot. Um, but yeah, the performance overall was pretty rough indoors. But anyhow, the Sigma BF camera, you know, with the built-in internal memory only, there's no card slot, and that's fine. Uh, it has a replaceable battery, 24 megapixel full frame, and it has a pretty good autofocus. I mean, it seemed to lock on everything I would point and shot it at. It was fine. It was an interesting camera. I think I'll pass on it, but it was tempting. If they had one there in stock ready to sell me, I probably would have bought it like an idiot. I'm just that. Yeah. So there's that. And then that was really the only interesting things. I got a chance to see the Nikon Z6, I think it's called, the little cinema rangefinder style camera with no EVF, another brick. Uh, I just don't understand the focus on cinematography where every camera now that comes out, it feels like has to have like killer video specs, as if you need, all these TikTokers and YouTubers need this high-end type stuff. And I don't know, I just don't understand. I feel like it's one of the areas that cameras can improve on. They have a lot of room to grow on the video side if you're talking about a regular camera. And that's where the manufacturers are focusing their efforts so that they can check more boxes than their competitor. So that because we've kind of plateaued on the sensor, right? We're just not going to get any better image quality out of the sensors that we have as far as stills photography goes. So manufacturers are checking boxes, and this is where OM Systems and historically Olympus has always tried to stand out is offer more on the still side, on the photography side than other manufacturers. Now other manufacturers are catching up, but Pro Capture, uh, Live ND, Grad ND, live composite, starry sky AF, internal focus bracketing and stacking. Uh, being able to use flash with bracketing, you know, a lot, and by that, I mean, being able to use silent shutter, electronic shutter with your focus bracketing. Uh, and many other things, a lot of people don't like the art filters. I like the art filters. I kind of, in the fall, I tend to use like the pop art filters to bring out the colors more. But, I really think this is where OM Systems needs to lean into more is on the computational side. And that is what they've been saying over and over again. Uh, but yeah, so and to that end, I just finished reviewing the Ace Pro 2. The video will be out in a day or two, but I finished reviewing that camera and it has a lot of features that OM systems should incorporate in their own cameras. And I think that'll add to the appeal of people that, don't want to buy like an action cam, for photography. They want a real camera, right? Where you got different focal lengths, interchangeable lens system, even a compact camera. Like if they made something like if Panasonic would come out with like an LX100 Mark III, so you have that zoom range and you have some of the features that the Ace Pro 2 has built in, man, that thing I think would sell like hotcakes. Because nobody else is doing it in the real camera world. The active HDR or pure shot video that they have built in, the voice and hand recognition controls instead of using a remote shutter that I have to pay $100 for, or the built-in time lapse and some other features, right? It's a ton of things in that camera that are great for photography that could be adapted, I think, pretty easily to a regular camera. And if they could do that like in an LX100 Mark II or make it a Mark III, incorporate everything that that thing has, including weather sealing and waterproofing down to 39 meters or whatever, they would have a killer camera that I think a lot of people, particularly like, and I'm going back to the TikTokers and YouTubers that like to create content, that would be such a great camera. And it would just, I just feel like that would, and I'm thinking from a marketing standpoint, right? Not for my own personal use. Uh, but from a marketing standpoint, if they could lean into more of that, uh, that'd be amazing. So I don't know. Anyway, I'm gonna, that review will be out in a couple days, and I've shared some images from last, when I was on last week from that camera. I'll show a couple more today. But okay, let me go to the chat section since I said I want you guys to drive the conversation, but I just wanted to share some random thoughts from the trade show yesterday, and it's primarily Fuji. I looked at a couple of the Nikons, the Z8, that Z6. I don't know why. I used to be a big Nikon guy. I just haven't been too impressed with their DSLRs, their mirrorless cameras. I like them, Z5, Z6, Z7, whatever Mark version, they've all been fine cameras. I just don't know why I'm not feeling any mojo with their cameras. Uh, Even the ZF, when it first was announced, I was like, "Ooh, that's interesting." But then my gas for that died off really quickly, and I don't know why. I don't know what it is with Nikon. Like I said, nothing wrong with their cameras; they're fine, but I don't know what it is. So, okay. Oh, Michael's here. Hey, Michael. Yeah, I'm gonna get your coffee soon. Thank you so much for that. And let's see. A clever ploy for more likes. Yeah, I forget what the context of that comment's for. And let's see. Good morning, Adam. Good to see you. Adam's been with been a viewer for a long time of my streams. And ATR Bear, good to see you. Raman, good morning from Kansas. And yes, audio issues have been solved, I hope. And Robert, good to see you. Maybe we'll see you later today. Maybe I'll go back to the trade show. I was looking at a tripod there. And Thomas is here. Good to see you from Atlanta. And Adam says, I'm digging into the non-Fuji primes for my new XT30. Oh, a really good prime is I mean, you don't have to go non-Fuji. You can go unless you want manual focus and super cheap, but the 35 f2 is an excellent prime for that camera. Excellent. Because I had the XT30 and I used the 35 f2. It's only 200 bucks. Autofocus, no weather sealing, but that combination is excellent. Um, while I had the XT30 though, I think that was the only lens I really used. I didn't, and the kit lens, the 18 to 55 is fine. It's a little bulky on that camera, but the 18 to 55, 2.8 to f4 is really good on that camera too. So those two lenses really all you need. Uh, but aside from that, if you want some good primes, all of the Viltrox Air series, Viltrox Air, I've done a review on some of them here. All of the Viltrox Air lenses are awesome. They're very small, compact, lightweight, and really, really good. In fact, the Sigma rep that was there was commenting on how good these third-party lenses are, you know. Uh, but hey, good morning. Uh, Says glad you're back. So I'm getting the Olympus 150 to 400 Pro. I see people put straps on the lens versus the camera. What's the best way to walk around with that big lens? Definitely do both. Excuse me, do both, right? Put one strap hook on the lens, one strap hook on the camera. And that's probably the best way to do it because you want to relieve the pressure from the lens mount itself. So if you split that up between the camera and the lens, then that'll be fine. You could go as far as mounting to the lens only, but that will restrict your ability to use it. Uh, and what I'm thinking of is on the bottom of the hot shoe or on the bottom of the what do they call it? Foot, there's a quarter 20 screw, and you can screw in a rapid strap into that. And that'll take all the weight off of the lens mount because what you don't want to happen is, and you won't know it until you start really in, pixel peaking your images. But the lens mount can go off center a little bit, not off center, but can be pushed in or out a little bit. And then all of a sudden the corner of your images are soft or out of focus because the focal plane is out of alignment with the lens mount. So that's why you don't want to carry the camera you don't want to put the straps only on the camera. You can put the straps only on the lens, but then the balance is a little bit off. So if you split it between the camera and the lens, I think that would be best. And the great Vanzini, good morning, good to see you. And Moxie Rower, definitely on that lens. The lens mount will eventually fail if you strap it to the camera. I'm just trying out a Spider Pro to carry it on my OM1 Mark II. Okay. Um, I'm not familiar with that system. I think it's a belt system, right? The Spider. Yeah, I would definitely avoid doing anything that relies on mounting to the camera. If you use that spider hook on the foot of the lens, that would make more sense. But then you kind of lose the ability, I think, to mount the lens onto a tripod using the foot. Since when does YouTube show the handle instead of my real name? Yeah, it is annoying. It's been bothering me too. I don't know why. I don't know why they do that. I guess you didn't receive any package from Germany yet. No, I did not. Um, Henning was going to send me something from Germany. I don't know what it is, but I'll share it with you guys as soon as I get it. And the Z Pipe 2 has better video AF than photo, if reviews be accurate. Really? I guess it's all relative, right? Rob Trek, I use the Godox LED 30-watt video lights in low light outside wildlife situations. No problem using three operating from a D-tap battery mounted to a belt clip. So this goes back to a conversation we had a couple of weeks ago about I suggested like a 60-watt light, like a compact 60-watt light. There's also very compact 100-watt lights. I think you'll only get 80 watts if you're running it on battery, but it's relatively compact too. Um, but Godox has a good selection of LED lighting though. And if 30 watts is enough, that's fine. And Whiplash says OM needs better video in my opinion. Okay. I'm fine with the video as it is, but yeah, it's not top tier video, right? I'm gonna try and do some video with my Fujifilm. Supposedly my XH2 has really good video capability. And Twit say, good afternoon from the UK. I was out earlier today with my dogs and was taking photos in the warm sunshine with my camera, the EM10 Mark II. Yeah, that EM10 Mark II is really still one of the best cameras ever made. It's getting really long in the tooth, and in the sense that it's a little questionable to buy a camera that old, digital camera that old. You probably could and get another 5 to 10 years out of it, but it is starting to age. And Adam says, I'm looking for a tripod along the lines of the old Me photo tripods. Okay. The one I had folded up to 12 inches. Oh, is that the one with the okay, so Photo Pro makes a pretty good one. Um, that's sort of the paint stick style. So let me show you the one I'm thinking of. And there's other brands, but Photo Pro comes to mind. Let me just pull that up. Not that one, not that one. So this one here, let's see, this collapses down to, did they give the measurements? This one collapses down really small though. They don't show, did they state it down here? So folded length, 400 millimeters. So 400, it's not 12 inches, but uh, 15 is not bad. Oops. And this is only 0.81 kilos, but I really like this one. Let's see, this one is where the legs invert. This will probably get you down to 12 inches, but see the weight? It's quite a bit more. So folded length, 14 inches. So this one's at 14 inches because you invert the legs. So you save several inches from the head right here. But those are a couple options that you can look at, or that style of tripod where the legs twist and pull. I'm not a fan of that type of style leg myself because you have to be really conscious of making sure those are always nice and tight, right? Otherwise, it's going to droop. But if that's what you were thinking of, let me know. Something like that. If I'm way off base, let me know, and I'll try and find another option for you. And Handmade says 35 is too tight for me on a Fuji. The old 16 1.4 is a beast, only a little bulky. Yeah, that's the only challenge with these smaller cameras on Fuji is a lot of the Fuji lenses are just bulky on these small cameras. So the Viltrox 14 millimeter, uh, this is a really good lens. Um, yeah. They should have. I think this is a no. This is a Fuji mount. The Fuji. Oh, it's a 15 1.7. This is a really good lens. It's a little bit wider on the end than the 33 or the 35 f2, but this is really good. I don't have a small Fuji. I only have my XH2. But I'm leaning in on maybe an XT50. It's just the prices are just so high for that thing. I want to spend. But if I get an XT50, this is the lens I'll probably. Did I review this already? I mean, the box is open, so I must have reviewed it. I think this is less than 200 bucks too. But yeah, it's relatively small. It's about the size of the 25 1.4 from for Micro Four Thirds. I know it looks massive, like the size of my head, but it's quite small. If I hold it up here, it looks massive. But just to put everything on the same focal plane, you can see it's pretty small. I can mount it on my XH2 if that helps. I'm reviewing a secret lens here for Fuji. Uh, it hasn't been announced yet, so I'm like under an NDA for it. It's a nice lens. Um, so here it is on my XH2, and all of the Olympus, or I'm sorry, the Viltrox Air lenses are about this size. Whether you get the 15 or the 50, you know, uh, this is a really good lens. So what's this equivalent to? 20, about 22, 23 millimeter equivalent. It's kind of wide, but it's a good lens, I guess. But they make a 25, I think, a 23 or 25. But Fuji makes, or Viltrox makes a lot of great lenses. I think I'll keep this one. A lot of times I sell off the lenses after I review them, because I don't really use those systems, right? My Sony, my Fuji. But I think this lens is a keeper. I did a review on it. I had to have. I've done a review on this lens. You can see my video on this. Fuji also makes a 16. Yeah, the 16 2.8 is pretty small. Yep. But I would argue you can save some money and get this. I think the 16-8 is a little expensive. This is less than $200, this lens, and it's really good. And Gigi Wildlife, hope you are good. I'm doing well. Thank you. I hope you're doing well. And I heard some complaints that there's no full-size HDMI connection on the current OM1 Mark II. There are users that want to see that next flagship with dual CF Express. Okay. So yeah, so again, we're going back to focusing on video specifications, right? If if OM Systems really ups their game on the video side, then they're going to have to update the port to HDMI. As it stands now, the video doesn't really need a full-size HDMI. Nobody's going to use OM Systems for, serious cinematography. And that's such a small number of people, you know, and OM system is not focused on them at all. But let's say they need to start checking some boxes. If they check all the boxes on the video side, you know, delivering 10 or 12-bit, you know, raw through the HDMI port, for example, and, you know, basically making a Panasonic. Panasonic's already there, right, with the S5 II, or the, I'm sorry, yes, the S5. The G9 Mark II, I don't know if it has a full-size HDMI or not, but, you know, these cameras have really good video specs, particularly the S5s and the new S1s that came out. You know, they all have full-size ports, and I just don't know if OM Systems is ever going to get their video game up to that level. And if they do, then they better put a full-size HDMI because nobody's going to buy it. You could have the best video specs in the world, then you put a micro HDMI on there, no serious cinematographer is going to buy it because there's just too many options. Um, so yeah, if anybody's complaining it doesn't have a full-size HDMI right now, that it doesn't make any sense to me to put a full-size HDMI on there when the video output is only a little better through the port, if at all. Because I know you can output, I think, raw through the HDMI port on an OM camera. I don't know exactly the specs, but you can output 10-bit video through the HDMI port. But nobody's using OM systems for video, so why put a full-size HDMI port in there? And is the 40 to 150 Pro lens one that needs the strap split as well? Yes. A better way to carry that lens, because it's not very big, a better way to carry that lens is on the foot. Just put a single ring in there with a rapid strap and carry it that way. That's the way I would carry that. That's how I carry my 300 f4 Pro, is with a rapid strap into the hutch, into the foot, the tripod. What do they call it? The lens collar with the foot. Um, Otherwise, I split it between the foot and the thing. Now, when I want to use it on my monopod, then I have to take that ring out so I can mount it on there. So there's a little bit of a workflow issue. Uh, but yeah, I would definitely, any opportunity to take pressure off the lens mount, you should take it. You know, small lenses, the primes and things, even the 40 to 150 f4, these smaller lenses that weigh, you know, less than 500 grams, I wouldn't worry too much. Another thing you have to look out for is generally, if you can, is, you know, don't mount the lens on the camera when you put it in your bag. Because if your bag drops or falls, you know, somewhere, you can also break the lens mount or get it out of whack. Because you know, I can't tell you how many times I'll put the bag, I don't do it anymore, but I used to put my bag on my passenger side seat. And if I ever had a hard stop, the bag would, of course, go forward and hit the floor. And there's potential there to break, you know, or warp the lens mount. No, the spider for the, oh, okay. Spider foot. That makes sense. Oh my God, Rob, what is it? Is it like 3 in the morning over there? Good to see you, buddy. And let's see, curious if anyone knows of a good camera mount for a canoe. Ooh, that's interesting. I can't think of anything. I mean, yeah. And the problem with higher powered LED lights is the battery, which it tends to be more than 14 volts, so not able to take on a plane. Oh, no, no, no. Let me show you. I'll show you one. I don't know how big your 30-watt lights are, but I'm going to show you my 100-watt light. So here's a 100-watt light, and it it uses USB-C power, right? And my 60-watt light also uses USB-C power. So your DTAP things should have a USB-C port out, unless you have an older one. But if you have a newer one, most of them are PD60 to PD100. So if you get a PD60, this will output like 40 watts, so kind of a wash there. But if you have a PD100 battery power pack, it'll power this light at 80 watts. And it's not too big. I have the Fresnel lens on here, but it's pretty narrow, right? So it's easy to pack, and it's pretty small. This is the 100-watt light, and my 60-watt light over here is even smaller. And that's also powered by USB-C. Let me. Damn it. All right. This one is even smaller, just to give you some perspective, right? But it's no thicker. It's the same thickness, roughly. But that's a 60-watt light, just to give you some, since it's on the same focal plane, right? So it looks about, get a good idea. Here's my Leica D-Lux 8. It's about the same size as my camera, roughly. And they have this is an RGB version, but they have these in regular bicolor, which will be brighter. Something this size. But this is my, God, I'm really clumsy this morning. This is my 20-watt light. You can see the 60 and the 20. There's not much difference in size. Of course, this is made to be more diffused, right? But this is so much brighter going from 20 to 60. It's a huge difference. Okay. Do you think the problem with going too high with megapixels micro four thirds, you run into problems with diffraction? That's part of it. It's definitely part of it. But they can go a little more. It can go a little bit more because uh, right now, technically, diffraction sets in even by f8, right? And not much, but you do start to lose a little bit of contrast at f8. And then at f11 and f16, you can definitely see it. And if you go with a finer pixel pitch than you currently have, it's going to start to set in before f8, maybe even f5.6. So the question is, the trade-off is, you're pretty much, if we're doing sports action wildlife with super telephotos, you're pretty much stuck with buying all the high-end glass, right? You have to get the f4s, the f4.5, this high-end glass. Trying to use, say, something like the 75 to 300, even though you can shoot that at 6.7, it could be a problem. Uh, but it's not as big a deal. It's not that big a deal, but Yeah, you would definitely start to lose some image quality as you're suggesting here with due to diffraction because of the finer pixel pitch. And for wildlife videos, I use the Lumix G5 Mark II, which has full-size HDMI ports, as does my Lumix G9. Okay. And taking my rarely used tiny 15 1.7 micro four thirds lens on a trip to Cyprus to try some street building landscape for a change. No idea on performance. Yeah, that everything I've seen from that lens has been awesome. Yeah, if I didn't have a 17 already, if I had to start over again, I would buy that instead of the 17 that I have. Oops. And I'm thinking of what OM system needs to do to maintain and gain market share. Yeah, uh, I don't think increasing megapixels is going to do it. It's just not, because they're never going to have a 60 megapixel camera. I really doubt they can go to 40. So what are they going to go to? 25? That's not going to attract any more people, uh, particularly if there's any loss in image quality. Like I said, the G9 Mark II has 25, and it didn't do anything for Micro Four Thirds, market share. I think Panasonic's, yeah, I don't know. Um, Home system had a hard push on video was was the last hard push on video was the M1 Mark II. They did some firmware updates and pushed out a separate model just for video. With the M1, they put a red box for recording, and that was it. Yes. I mean, the main thing with video was really, I think, the step to the M1 Mark III was it didn't split the files up when you were shooting 4K video. And they don't have separate manual, not model. Okay, that makes more sense. But there was that, and being able to output 10-bit RAW through the HDMI port. But like I said, if they don't put a full-size HDMI port, nobody's going to use it really. And thanks for the 100-watt info on the 100 watt. Yeah, okay. I have a USB outlet. So yeah, you just have to check the PD rating on it. If it's a 60-watt rating, there's no point to buy a 100-watt light because at 60 watts, it's only going to output like 40, right? Because it takes about 20% of the power off of whatever it's rated. Now, if you can attach a PD like 140 watt supply, then this will go to 100 watts. But I don't know of any DTAP system, batteries that do that. Most of them do have 100 watt now, though. Say for canoes, use a paddle pod, flat and can be screwed onto the canoe or strap if you don't want to keep it mounted all the time. Oh, that's interesting. Never heard of that. Thank you, Stuart. I hadn't thought of that. What is the limit for plane travel? I have no idea. I don't travel. I haven't been on a plane since 1999. The old 16 megapixel cam still takes great pics. Yes, they do. And I was thinking that the improvement of better video specs, such as full-size HDMI connectivity, is something that would help increase market share so that more so than high resolution sensor. Like I said, they have to they have to up their video game though. Um, what they have for video now is just not enough. Trying to think, if they can output 422 10-bit, because I think even now it's 420 10-bit, but output, uh, have in-camera ProRes. I mean, they need to do everything Panasonic's doing on the video side to justify a full-size HDMI. Just throwing an full-size HDMI port, say on an OM1 Mark II, wouldn't change anything. Nobody's buying an OM1 Mark II for video. Uh, that said, the GH7, is anybody really buying that camera? That camera does everything. It has 25 megapixels. I mean, it checks all the boxes we've been talking about, right? More megapixels, full size HDMI, you know, video out, all the way. Video goes all the way on that camera. You can do everything with it. Phase detect autofocus now. The GH7 is a beast of a camera. Uh, but how is it selling? I don't know. Maybe it's doing great, but uh, that's a good example, I think, of is it going to make any difference if OM System does the same thing, right? If OM Systems can put all of the GH7 specs into an OM1 Mark III with the full-size HDMI using CF Express cards for the high bit rate video, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I don't know if that's going to do it. I still don't see anybody buying. I don't hear much talk about the GH7 anymore, right? I could be wrong. I'm just not in the video world, so I don't have a feel for what's popular on the video side or not. But I just don't think that and the GH7 has a cooling fan built in, right? So that's part of what's making it bulkier. Uh, I mean, for a long time, I think up to the GH5, Mark II, Panasonic for video, everybody was fine with Micro Four Thirds because it delivered. The lenses were more compact, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But at this point in the game, there's more options. People are buying little box cameras now for video, right? And Marcia is here. Good morning. Good to see you. So I don't know. Does anybody here have a GH7? I guess if Emily did live streams over there at Micro Four Nerds, that would be a better audience for the GH7. But yeah, no, I don't know. What do you think, Anthony? Why doesn't the GH7 interest you, for example, or why doesn't the GH7 bring Micro Four Thirds back to back into a bigger market share than it is? Because I just I don't think it's going to cut it anymore. And Whiplash says people buy video cameras these days. Photography specs are assumed, as is excellent AF and subject detect. Exactly. But I would I would argue that manufacturers are putting out video cameras, more capable video specs in their cameras because we've plateaued on the photography side. So they're putting out higher video specs, like Nikon. Nikon bought what? The Red company last year, and they're trying to really lean on into the video side because nobody else has Red. Uh, so I don't know. And rather than GH7, I have a G9 II, which is the same video specifications and cheaper. Plus, it's also good for videos. Great camera if you do photos and videos. Yeah. The G9 II does it all. I don't know if it has a full-size HDMI port, though. Let me know. But the G9 Mark II, I didn't know that it had pretty much the same specs as the GH7, but wouldn't surprise me. Is that camera selling like hotcakes compared to, say, the OM1 Mark II, or did it increase the market share of Micro Four Thirds in general? I would say the answer to that is probably not. So I don't know, Anthony, if adding a full-size HDMI makes any sense. Because the G9 Mark II has checks all the boxes too, right? Save for the full-size HDMI. I'm not sure about that. Let me just check. does have a full size port. So G9 Mark II has all the video specs, has a full size HDMI port, and has a high resolution sensor. And yet, Micro Four Thirds as a whole still hasn't expanded their market share. Now, if you're thinking about specifically for Olympus Home Systems, I don't think it's going to help them to match what the G9 Mark II does. You know, uh, so they have to lean in on the computational side. That's the only way I think they can do it. That's just my opinion. And or start coming out with more interesting cameras. Start taking some risk with a Pen F Mark II or something Fuji is doing a lot of, right? I mean, they're putting out cameras that are just, I think, absorbently expensive for what they are. Like the X100 VI, that should not be a $2,000 camera, uh, but it is. That X half camera doesn't even shoot RAW. It's like $900. Uh, if that was a $500 camera, I'd be scratching my head like, why? But it's 900. And I'm like, wow, you know, that's crazy. Well, people are buying it. That, and then they got the XE5 now. Uh, Fuji's the only problem with Fuji is everybody's harping on their autofocus. I found the autofocus fine for still photography. Like I said, I don't do much video, but um, I don't know, Anthony. I just don't think that's gonna cut it. Adding a full size HDMI and up because, like I said, the G9, just like System Mature is saying, is the G9 Mark II has really has it all. And I hope I haven't reached my question limit yet. How far can I push the RAW files off of the Fuji X-T30? I find myself pushing high ISO. Also love that DxO lets you start with the film sims on the RAWs. Yes. It's a little better than Micro Four Thirds than, like, say, the OM1. It's not. It's yeah. So I wouldn't. I would say up to 6400, just like on our OM1. It's fine. You don't have to hardly do any noise reduction. You can do without AI noise reduction, even up to ISO 6400, assuming it's good light and all. Uh, Now, if you're shooting in low light and trying to push shadows, you know, uh, that's another story. Then I think the Fuji pulls ahead of the OM system cameras a little bit. What I noticed about the Fuji X-T30 was uh, that 26 megapixels or whatever it is. It was something around 24 to 26. Uh, that when I used it with that 33 one f2, the detail and the quality of the file was so good. The color information, everything. I was really impressed with it. The fine details and the colors that I could extract from it. The dynamic range and things, it's just going to be a little better than Micro Four Thirds. It's not night and day, just a little better. And good morning, Roger. Good to see you. So you can also attach an SSD to up to 2 terabyte on the Geno Mark II for recording videos, except the high-speed video at 240. Okay. Yeah, so I mean the G9 Mark II does basically video all the way, right? There's nothing you can't do with it on the video side. It has the high resolution, has the phase detect with subject detect. I mean, the G9 Mark II is such a good camera, and yet I just don't feel like it changed the game for Micro Four Thirds in general. And meaning OM systems, if they were to follow suit, I don't think it's going to make any difference. And then Roger said, which do you think is better image quality, a Raynox close-up lens or the Nisi ones? They're the same. I mean, that said, I haven't used either one, but Raynox is, I think, the more popular of the two over the Nisi. So I would just get the cheaper of the two. I think the Raynox is actually a little cheaper than the Nisi. So used pen F selling for over 1100. Wow, I know. I think I might sell my old pen F because I have two of them. I don't need two anymore because I have an OM3. Now, I don't know. If anybody wants to buy it, just email me. And hi, Bob. Glad to join again with love and regards from Singapore. Oh, good to see you. I don't know what the handle, what your name is, but the handle here, E101. Thank you. And Wayne says, which TXO products would you recommend? Are there any that are redundant? Yes. So basically, I think if you're going to get, I think it should be Photolab and Nick Collection. Those are your two best values. There's a lot of overlap on the uh, photo editing side. If you don't need the noise reduction, you can probably just use um, Nick Collection all by itself because you can edit the photos and stuff in Nick Collection. It just doesn't have noise reduction, and the interface is a little awkward if you're just going to do photo editing, but you could probably get away with just Nick Collection to edit your photos. Also, Nick Collection currently, and this is going to change soon, I'm sure. So currently, you have to work with TIFF files. You can't just open up a raw file in Nick Collection, right? So that's why you need Photolab, is the ability to open up the raw file, apply the optical corrections. So you could go pure raw and Nick Collection, and you can pretty much do everything with those two, right? Optical corrections, noise reduction, and pure raw, and then editing in Nick Collection. And that combination, but honestly, for the best workflow, and you also have some asset management things you can do with Photolab, uh, I would get Photolab and Nick Collection and skip Pure Raw. And so you're going to be out like 300 bucks or whatever that combination costs, but that would be the pair. Uh, film sim the film pack I'm not a big fan of. I don't use it very much, and Nick Collection has film simulations in it. They don't match what's in well, they're not the same, but if you want that filmic nostalgic look, you can do it in Nick Collection. So you have to excuse me just for 1 minute. I'm sorry. Uh, give me 1 second. Sorry for that interruption. So for DxO, I think you can really get by with only Photolab. And Nick Collection is nice. It gives you HDR capabilities and a lot of kind of art filter stuff. So you can be really creative with Nick Collection. But Nick Collection, in my opinion, is a better add-on for something like Photoshop and Lightroom. Uh, people that want more creative things. I don't know. I guess the same would apply to Photolab 8 or 9, but I think the DxO Photolab is all you really need, and I wouldn't worry about because you can get third-party products. In fact, what was just released, the Affinity, is now free, right? You can do everything in Affinity. I'm gonna have to explore Affinity a little bit and see if I can get rid of whatchamacallit, Lightroom and Photoshop altogether, uh, and just have my Photolab and maybe use Affinity because Affinity has like whatchamacallit, it has panorama capability, also has stacking, so it has some Astro stuff. It has a bunch of stuff that I think are pretty decent, but we'll see. Because right now I'm substituting. I have uh, I have AutoPana Giga or Giga, whatever. I have some free panel software that's pretty awesome, and but for focus stacking and stuff, I might have to buy like Helicon Focus or the other one, and then Photolab will be complete for me, right? Because I do focus stacking and I do panoramas, and those are two things that Photolab cannot do, but Affinity does. But Affinity, unless you pay for their subscription, you're not going to get like AI noise reduction. You're not going to get, all of the other stuff. But you get about 99% of everything I would use in a photo editor. Um, so I don't know if I really need Photoshop, and Lightroom anymore. But I have to see how the workflow is. We'll see. Oops. My issue with the G9 is the lack of comparable long lenses compared to the OM systems. Yeah. I mean, I think you shouldn't have any problem just using, but yeah, the G9 uses the old DFD system, so it's not quite as good, the autofocus using an Olympus lens. Nancy is, what improvements do you think OM system needs to make with future replacement of OM1 Mark II to be a big success? The computational things. Uh, but I really don't know what's going to make Micro Four Thirds a success, right? Because in my opinion, they already make great cameras. I just I I just can't think of too much more I could ask for from OM systems. The main thing would probably be, and the biggest area they need to work on is the autofocus. Like Robin Wong just did a review of the 50 to 200 f2.8, right? And I remember distinctly, he said his hit rate was 60 to 70%. That is not acceptable, you know? And, you can argue that Robin is not a sports action photographer and is not tuning the camera autofocus system to, not optimizing the autofocusing system and also his technique for sports action photography is why he's getting a 60-70% hit rate. But that's no excuse for OM systems to not have a higher hit rate uh, with somebody with like Robin Wong. Because Robin Wong is a competent photographer and should be getting like a 90% hit rate, no matter what, no matter even though he's not a sports action guy, he should be getting a 90% hit rate because he's a competent photographer and he's competent with OM system cameras. Uh, if he's getting a 60, 70% hit rate, that's and honestly, that's about my experience when I'm doing birds in flight and stuff. It's about 60, 70%. It's not like, I focus on a bird, it locks right away on the bird, but it's the tracking, right? As it's flying, and I'm panning the crap out of the sky, right? I'm going left and right trying to follow these kingfishers and other small birds. Uh, I lose focus, or they could be sitting on a branch and they start to fly off the branch. I'll miss focus on a few frames before it picks it up again. So yeah, I think if OM systems can get their autofocus to be, 100% or like closer to 95%. Let's say if they can get their autofocus to 95%, to anybody that picks up, any confident photographer that picks up that camera and lens combination and get a 95% hit rate, then they're going to have, I think that's going to make a much bigger difference than anything else they can do. Uh, and that's for sports action. For portraits and things like that, Robin is having a ton of trouble with autofocus for the kind of shooting that he does, basically low light event photography. He doesn't use the OM1. He uses the old EM1 Mark II for that. Uh, I don't have a problem with it. But again, uh, somebody like Robin Wong, a competent photographer, should not be saying the OM1 doesn't have good autofocus. You know, if he's not getting good autofocus with the camera, there's a problem. Just because I get good autofocus doesn't mean there's not a problem, right? It just means I'm shooting different in a different way. And maybe I'm, particularly for sports action, I could probably get a higher hit rate than Robin because I do a lot more sports action photography. But and then somebody like Lee Hoy will probably get a 95% hit rate because he's got a combination of, he knows the camera system inside and out. Plus, he's got probably 20, 30 years experience of shooting sports action wildlife, right? So he's going to get a 95% hit rate with an OM1, if not higher. But that, no, there's just no reason. So that's what I think. I think autofocus has to be job number one for any camera system. And the benefits of pure raw, primarily optical corrections and denoising. It's the best, But the Photolab has that built in, right? Right. So when I talked to Emily Taupin at an event at Hunt's Photos, she doesn't have a problem shooting at higher f-stops like f16, f22. Her book Bug Out has a lot of shot. Yes. So the difference is that she's, we're talking about close-up and macro photography, right? Uh, where you're filling the frame basically with the bugs. Most of the time, your best shots are going to be when you can fill the frame because you got a 90 macro with 2x magnification. You put a 2x teleconverter, you can get 4x mag. You know what? That's kind of where I'm going. Then diffraction is not an issue when you're filling the frame because you got a ton of pixels on the subject. Diffraction becomes an issue for more like landscape things when, each element in the frame is tiny. You know, the leaves on the trees, right? Those are only going to take up a few pixels in a frame. And that's when diffraction messes it up. And then when you look at the entire scene, it's going to look soft and low contrast because of diffraction. But when you fill the frame with one thing, right, you can shoot at f16, f22, okay, because you got a ton of pixels on the subject and it'll still look amazing. Film Pack doesn't have Fuji simulation like Velvia due to some license name issue. Oh, okay. Yeah, so speaking of Film Pack, there's just, they probably do the best job of emulating film than any other film simulation type plugins and whatever is out there. But it just doesn't. it doesn't do anything for me, right? Having a film simulation. I'd rather just personally, I like to edit the photos and get them to look the way I want them to look. I don't like just throwing a film simulation on and saying, "Ooh, okay, that's interesting." It is interesting, but it's not what I wanted. Uh, I can get a film that look to any image just using Photolab. And if you want presets, you can get Nick Collection. Nick Collection has a ton of presets for film simulations. Do they match exactly what the original film look like? No, of course not. But there's a lot of different things in Nick Collection, and then Film Pack's the same thing. There's a lot of different things, but it doesn't. Film Pack just doesn't do anything for me. Why doesn't anyone ever talk about all the other bracketing beyond focus bracketing? Are they not useful? So exposure bracketing is useful. Then you have art bracketing, you have ISO bracketing, and um, white balance bracketing. These are tools that have very, very niche case use cases, right? So if you're yeah, so they're not quite as useful in my opinion. I can't think of too many applications I would use ISO bracketing, right? Or when would I ever use white balance bracketing? I can't think of too many situations I would ever use that in, if any. Um, the white balance bracketing I can do in post processing, right? And ISO bracketing, I can't think of too many use cases for that. I can't think of any use case, but why would you do that? What else is in there? Uh, art bracketing. Art bracketing is kind of fun. It's particularly useful when you're first starting out with the camera and you want to know what an image, the kind of impact an art filter will have on an image very quickly. You can just art bracket your images and say, oh, that's what Pop Art 1 looks like, Pop Art 2. Because there's so many art filters. I did that a lot. I did a lot of art bracketing in the beginning. Now I have a pretty good feel for which art filter I want to use. Like Dramatic Tone is one of my favorites, and then also Pop Art 1 is. So those are the two I use the most. But the other bracketing features, can't think of what else is in there. All my cameras are somewhere else. Um, but primarily, what photographers are going to use is the exposure bracketing and focus bracketing. Those are the two big ones. Do we? Sorry, I keep. Okay, I have to check my texts for many reasons, but uh, if I lose audio sometimes, I'll get a text from someone and say, "Hey, your audio stopped." And Intrigue is here. Good to see you. And why doesn't it? Okay, we did that one. Yeah, I wouldn't say they're not useful. I would just say they're very limited use case. And Gab says M43 is too mature to make massive changes. It is what it is. That's right. And future cameras sadly will have an AI button. All photos will be perfect. We won't even need cameras in the future. We're just going to have a little contact lens or wear those glasses, right? Uh, so we just have to think about what we want to take a picture of or look at it, and then take a picture. Is the issue with the OM1 Mark II or the 5200? I thought he didn't like the OM1 autofocus in general. Uh, well, since he was doing sports action, I think it's the OM1 Mark II, not the lens. And Robin's hit rate is significantly below my own for birds in flight, which is 90% of what I get from my Canon R6 2 and 100 to 500 lens. Robin is a great street and portrait ride, but not for what the OM focus. Yeah, so yeah, I would argue I'd probably get a higher hit rate than Robin, but my statement is mainly uh, autofocus needs to be fixed, or it needs to be better and less complicated. But it's really good now because every comparison, just about every kind, and I'm cherry picking, right? But every time I see these users that shoot primarily Nikon or Canon, and OM Systems sent them, a camera to test, they all said that the autofocus is fine, right? Some of them nitpick here and there, but for the most part, it wasn't like OM Systems way down here and their Canon or Nikon is way up here, right? It was always like, yeah, it's pretty close, it's good enough. But none of the reviews I've seen in these kind of comparisons did anybody do any metrics and say, okay, I did, because it's hard with wildlife. But so I don't think Home Systems is that far off, but I would be curious to see if Robin went out with, say, an R6 Mark II and whatever Canon lens, I'm not familiar with Canon lenses, whatever Canon telephoto lens, if his hit rate would be higher with very little effort. Because now we're talking about he's not familiar with the camera system, and again, he's not really a sports action guy. Would his hit rate be higher? I'd be curious. Same thing with Starry Sky. Autofocus keep losing the focus when you zoom in or after a few minutes when it's on tracker. I don't use autofocus on a tracker, but same thing with the Starry Sky. Now, you do have to be conscious though, because when you're on a tracker, particularly in the wintertime, it's a good idea every couple of hours, if you're tracking all night, but every couple hours to refocus because temperature changes in the lens and in the ambient temperature around can change the optics of the lens enough that the stars are going to be out of focus, even if you focused initially. So maybe so I don't know how long you're tracking for. If you're tracking for like an hour or less, probably it's not a problem. But I don't know why it would be losing focus with autofocus because you shouldn't be autofocusing with a tracker. You should be in manual focus with the 40 to 152.8. So if you're talking about some specific issue, I'm not aware of it on that lens. But exposure bracketing. So exposure bracketing, if that's a question, is basically depending what mode you're in, it's going to adjust the shutter speed, the aperture, or the ISO, right? And it's going to take one shot at one exposure, your base exposure, whatever that is. Typically, it's just a neutral gray, 18% gray exposure. But it's going to take one exposure and then it's going to overexpose by one or two stops or underexpose by one or two stops. Uh, and there's variations in between, but it's basically the idea is to take one scene, typically a landscape, and over and underexpose the image, capture all of that, and then blend them together later, either through HDR or doing exposure blending and post processing uh, to capture the maximum dynamic range. So it's basically you're manually doing HDR. And simply the short says improved AF on the OM1 Mark III would be great, although high-speed lens motors is also vital. However, although say Sony A1 and 300 millimeter 2.8 lens have superb AF, costs around 11,000. Yeah, so there's always price, right? You have to put in factor in price in all these systems because Anthony and I, we exchange emails or something in the comment section or here live, uh, comparisons between OM systems and other camera systems, right? And one that was brought up recently was the Sigma 300 to 600 versus the OM system 150 to 400. And the point he made was that the 150 to 400 is $1,000, if not more at this point, than the Sigma lens, which is 300 to 600 zoom f4. So, uh, but you could put together a very competent system for not that much money on any system, right? But ultimately, OM Systems, I still think is the best one overall out of all the choices that I could make. Because I could certainly go out and buy, whatever zoom lens for any of my other camera systems and get good results. But I overall, the reach that I get because I can use a smaller camera system and smaller lenses and still get the same reach is why use OM systems, right? Because I can put my 300 millimeter f4, I have a 600 millimeter equivalent reach. And to get anything close to that on any other system is going to cost significantly more. So, say for example, uh, and none of the other camera systems shoot 50 frames per second with continuous autofocus. And that's a big deal to me too. I think the Sony A1 might come close, but I'm not aware of any other camera system that can do 50 frames per second raw with continuous autofocus, pre-capture with continuous autofocus. These kind of things. Um, and if there is a camera system out there that does that, maybe the Sony A1 does, right? Yeah, it's double, triple, four times the price. Because let's say for example, I get a Sony A1, which is like 6 grand. Let's say 5 grand. Okay. Sony A1 is 5 grand for the Mark One. And then I can get the 500 f5.6 from Sigma, right? So now I have a 50 megapixel camera, a 500 millimeter focal length at f5.6, reasonably fast aperture. So that's pretty close to what I can do with an OM1 and 300 f4. It's pretty close. Because you can crop in a little bit on that 50 megapixels and still get the same reach effectively, right? But what's a Sony A1 cost, right? 5 grand. That lens is another 2 grand, I believe, for an f5.6. So you're out 7 grand. Whereas I can get an OM1 with the 300 f4 for 5 grand, like $2,000 less, right? So I don't know. And my system's going to be smaller and lighter because my 300 f4 is roughly half the weight. Oh, I'm sorry. No, it's not. But yeah, my system is still going to be smaller and lighter overall. And also, yeah, the high speed, just to come back to your question, the high speed motors to get the really fast linear motors that you get like in the pro lenses, yeah, they're expensive too. Am I gonna max out the credit card on Black Friday? Yeah, I probably will. I got them just about all paid off. I just bought some clothes like this. What you're seeing, this is all new. What I'm wearing today. So I didn't pay much. I'm like Mr. Budget guy. $17 for this cardigan, about 15 or dollars for this. I paid like $6 for this shirt, but I did up my game and I sent off to Goodwill a bunch of clothes that are like 10 years old. I figured it after about 10 years, because I was looking through my closet, I got these shirts that I've had forever and ever, and they're just looking old and tired. And I'm like, I like this shirt, but for $6 I can get a new one. So hopefully there's a new flagship corner around the camera to complement the new mini wide zoom and the rest of the super telephoto zooms. Yeah, well, I think a flagship is we're still a year or two out, at least. We might start hearing rumors the end of next year, and it'll be the year after, like 2027, probably when we get another camera, is my thinking. I thought Robin's main complaint was indoor low light concerts. He did better with his old EM5 Mark III, I believe. Yeah. Yeah. So indoor low light type stuff. He's he's definitely doesn't like the all-in-one for any of that stuff. It'd be great if OM system had the capacity to expand to other formats. Yeah, they don't. If my own one had 4K 120 and AF, I'd be fine. I don't need raw video. I don't use that much of the G92's vid capability. Um, yeah, so we're still at 4K 60, right? Like I said, home systems, they could up their video game quite a bit, but I don't know if that would draw any new business. Yeah, nothing better than a good cardigan. Yep. And Signature says, even though I have a Sony A1 and a 200 to 600 lens, I primarily use my own system Micro Four Third, which is about, without a doubt, the best option of my photo and video. Right, right. So, he can do a side by side, right? I've seen side by sides. They're all over because OM System is very generous in lending out their gear to people that shoot other camera systems. And like I said, I've seen a lot of those videos, and I haven't seen anybody say the autofocus is bad on the OM1, you know. Uh, Mostly what they talk about is they said the only thing that was really a problem was like the shallower depth of field. They like that on their full frame cameras, but it's you're not going to find too many people switch out of full frame to Micro Four Thirds if they don't mind the size and weight, right? Because they're going to get better image quality if they invest the money and are willing to carry the bigger lenses. But for the size and weight and the difference in image quality between the two, there's very little difference in my opinion between a Micro Four Thirds camera for sports action wildlife and a full frame system versus the difference in cost, right? The disparity there in cost is huge. Actually, there are photographers that use the Z9 and Z8 that also have an O1 Mark II kit, especially for when traveling in small aircraft or airlines are difficult to carry on these days. Yeah. So exactly, right? It's you think they would if the all-in-one Mark II didn't deliver, you think these guys would get one? If they have a Z9, Z8 and the expensive lenses, you think they would bother with an all-in-one Mark II if it wasn't good enough? Maybe it's not as good as their Z9, Z8 ultimately, but they can take it on an airplane with them, right? I would love to see a 12 to 50 f2 in a white body to go with the other. That's interesting. That would be an interesting lens. Because at this point, size and weight is out the window, right? If you want a 12 to 50 f2, it's going to be a much bigger lens than the 2.8. Trying to think, we don't have anything. The closest thing we got is like a 10 to 25 f1.8. I think Panasonic makes. Anthony, I missed this one. Do you think the future they should join the Elman Alliance and bring out a full frame camera? I know they just have to introduce a mini white zoom. Hopefully that means there's a new flagship. I know they've just so the mini white zoom, I assume you mean the 50 to 200. Uh, I don't see why they need to join the Elman Alliance. They should just really knock out the autofocus system, really do something in Micro Four Thirds. They just don't have the bandwidth to do both. Uh, just think about it. What do we have right now? We have an OM1, OM5, TG7. That's it, right? I'm not missing anything. Now I get it. The OM1, OM5 can have 2, 3 year, even 4 year life cycles, right? Before they come out with another model. But they don't have, 5, 10, 20 different camera models coming out on a consistent basis, right? Rolling out consistently because they just don't have the bandwidth. Because that's what a lot of like Fuji does that, right? They just came out with an XE5, then they had the X half, and then uh, but XT5, XT50, XT30 Mark III just announced. I mean, they're constantly coming out with different models, just like Sony, constantly coming out with different models. They have the A7C series, they have the A7 series, the A7R series, then they got their Seminole line, the FX series, and then they got their little compacts like the ZV series. I mean, they got so many different cameras because they have the bandwidth to do this. All them systems, they just don't have the bandwidth to go into L mount to introduce multiple different lines of cameras. So they need to really make what they have be very best with the bandwidth that they have. I met two Olympus shooters last night. They do exist. I see them all the time. I see a lot of OM system shooters out there. A lot. Uh, like I went to an event a couple of weeks ago, and this was not like this was some kind of folk. I forget what it was called. Anyway, I saw a lot there, and then I saw when I go out to do Huntley Meadows and some other parks, every time I go to the park, if I see a photographer, I feel like either 50-50, I'm going to see an Ohm system camera if they're doing wildlife, like at the parks that I go to. I see a lot. So it's just surprising that the market share is small as it is when I see so many. So they're definitely hitting their niche. Now, when I go out to street and I'm walking around, that's when I see actually a lot of little digicams and things that people are using, the younger people. And it's only time I really see a predominance of other camera systems is like I went to the trade show yesterday. I didn't see any OM system users at the trade show other than people that I know personally, but like just some rando going down the hall, yeah, they had a Sony or Canon, right? Um, Canon is huge. I'm You know what's really weird is Canon is actually, for me, I really like it. I have a Canon R8. I really like that camera. I don't know. It's like I am half tempted to get like an R6 Mark III or whatever the latest Canon is, uh, and really get into that system. I really like it. I really like my Fuji system too. But my day to day, when I want to pick up a camera, it's always like the OM3, you know? Ultimately, that's the camera I want to take with me. I just love the OM3 with the 12 to 45. That's my I just love that combination. I can do everything with that. And then if I throw in the 40 to 150 or the 75 to 300, I'm ready for anything in just one little messenger bag, you know? Just this little thing. I can put everything in there. And the OM3 even fits in my cup holder. Sony never kills a product. I think they still sell like 7 Are you? Yeah, they do, don't they? God, there's so many cameras. My Sony A7R5, I'm just not a big fan of. You know, I keep doing reviews because they send me lenses for it, but um, I feel like I just feel like I should get rid of that camera. I just don't use it. Even though I really like the 55, I should go out and shoot with it with the 55 Zeiss that I have. I do like that combination. That combination is delicious, but it's so bulky. I don't know. Just not a fan of that system. I think the problem with M43 has been the bad press it has had in the past. It seems to me that this is changing, so maybe major change is not required. Many professional wildlife photographers use M43. That would not surprise me. But what bad press are you speaking to exactly? I mean, I know if you want to go way back when OM Systems or Olympus had their financial scandal, whatever that was. I saw some video on it. I can't remember what happened. Uh, there's a really long video about Fujifilm too. That's a really interesting video about the history of Fujifilm. They went into cosmetics and things. Fujifilm Cosmetics. I can't remember the video anymore, but my memory is so terrible. At 7 decades plus M43 makes a lot of sense. I tend to walk 4 to 7 miles on my photo walks. Weight matters, yes. And yes, for old cripples, size and weight is a big deal. Even my Nikon APS-Cs are heavier and more bulky. Yeah, it's always in the lenses, right? The lenses are what really, especially now, is what's driving the size and weight of the system up. Because I can show you right now. Um, I'm not even going to cherry pick. I'm going to take here's my OM1 with the base plate. Here's my Fujifilm XH2. This thing is on paper, they don't look like there's that much difference, but I can tell you when I'm holding these things in my hand, this is substantially larger. Now, let me get the kit lens. Good luck finding it. Let's do this. Here's a 55 to what is it? 55 to 200 for Fuji. And then here's my 40 to 150. Uh, I mean, this thing is tiny compared, and they both got the same lens hood on them. But yeah, when I put this on, I mean, it's like, and I can tell you the image quality difference between these two lenses is negligible. So yeah, and I got, you know what I mean? So all of a sudden, I mean, look at this difference. All of a sudden, if I'm going to go out with two kit lenses and a camera body, this gets big fast, right? And I'm not talking about uh yeah, so this gives me what? This gives me about 300 millimeter total. And this is yeah, so these are basically equivalent lenses. It just man, and don't even get me started on the kit lens. You know, the kit lens for the Fuji, the 18 to 55. Well, they have a new one, right? They have a 15 to 45, but it's not as good as this. This is a better lens, I think. Anyway, so what's next, right? I go out and get the Fujifilm 800 millimeter. That's a giant lens. Uh, but I'm not going to do that. Yes, the R8 is small. It's a very compact camera. And by bad press, I mean the negative comments, 143 performance, low light, poor high. And of course, oh yeah, yeah, yeah. So these, yeah, it's not that bad. I mean, I just don't get it. Let me let's look at a few images. Uh, and I'm talking without AI noise reduction applied. I gotta open up my app here. Actually, I don't even have to do that. I can go to DP review. They have a studio scene comparison tool, right? So let's put Canon R8 and an OM1 Mark II, or just a regular OM1. And we'll go to RAW and RAW. And let's do ISO 6400. I'll zoom in. I mean, is it really that much difference? Let's go to, so detail. They both lose detail right around this number 38. How about how about some hair? And you know, the R8 is a 24 megapixel full frame, so it's going to have probably the best noise performance as far as full frame goes. But let's pick something like a Fuji XH2. Well, XT5 is pretty much the same thing. So really that much difference there? I can't see any. In fact, I think I see more detail on my OM1 here. How about the lines? Yeah, so we lose a little bit. Yeah, we lose a little bit early on, right around number 32. But the Fujifilm goes to about 36. I think that means lines per inch, right? Or lines per centimeter. Let's go into a dark, low light area. And then let's go to, they have an XH2 in there. How about a Sony A7R5? That's another camera I have. A7R5. Is there really that much difference between the two? I mean, yeah, more resolution, but in terms of noise performance, we look in the shadow areas, they look pretty much the same to me. How about her face? So let's go to ISO 25,000. It's almost like the A7R5 looks worse. How about in like a shadow area? Let's go back to the Canon R8, which is uh I think here the Canon R8 you'll see a bigger difference. Yeah, it's better on the Canon R8 here. But it's not like um let's check down here. But I still got good detail down here. This is what? We're at probably 19 lines per inch. Well, it's jumping into, so this is 20 lines per inch right here versus here. So, that's what I'm saying is the hype about, yeah, the low light performance, everything falls apart on Micro Four Thirds. Really? Does it really? Not really. You start going up to 6,400, 25,000, they all fall apart. And I'm being, and it's very subjective. What does fall apart mean? Like, what is your tolerance for ISO? And I can, and my real life images are nowhere near that bad. Like, let's see. Let me go back another quarter. What ISO is this one? 200. So, like here's an image. This is ISO 12,000, right? I'm not even going to apply AI noise reduction. All I'm going to do is just drop the chroma noise down a bit. Where is it? So I just pulled the chroma noise back. This is not even AI noise reduction. I still got lots of detail. And if I apply AI noise, of course it's going to be fine. But it's hard to tell in a stream. What's Let's see. How about this one? This is at ISO 2500. I mean, lots of detail there. And if I clean this up with AI noise reduction, no problem at all. In fact, I think I have it over here. Let's see. No. What is this one? This one's ISO 5000. That's with all the AI stuff applied. So let me reset it. But yeah, this is typically that's typically what. So that's why I think a lot of people, like was mentioned earlier, even though they have V8, Z9 camera systems, when they travel, they're going to bring the OM1 Mark II and whatever lens, because it's a much smaller compact system, and they wouldn't do that if the image quality sucked, right? And exactly, basically, my point is lack of awareness of what M43 can really deliver is rather false perceptions. Yeah, Canon feels so clinical, doesn't feel fun to me. It is. It is kind of a boring camera. Uh, Not as boring as Sony. Sony's the ultimate snore fest for me. I just cannot get enthusiastic shooting that thing. That said, Canon's really no better. It's kind of boring, but I don't know what it is about it. You know what it is? The reason I like the Canon is the the way it feels in my hand. It's really comfortable, and the user interface, the menu system is very easy. The workflow is so smooth on a Canon. And then, of course, the colors and everything uh, are fine, but I don't know, just using when I'm using that Canon R8, and I've used other people's like R6s and R5s. I've tried. They're all really nice cameras. It's really tempting for me to kind of get heavier into that system. But I'm really enjoying my Fuji right now. Uh, Let me show you another image. Give me a second. You got to see this. Now, it's not a fair comparison because testing. I wasn't being really critical here, but uh, okay, the one on the left is taken with the D-Lux 8, and the one on the right I took with the Fuji XH2. So they look very similar at like a normal viewing, right? But if I zoom in, this is what, 17 megapixels. This is 40. I mean, even on the live stream, you should be able to see a huge difference in the quality or the detail, the resolution, I should say. So, and I shot at f4 on this one, and I believe I was shooting at f5.6 on the Fuji. I was manually focusing with the Fuji. But at no point in the frame, let me see if I can find another point in the frame here. See, like I can see this is a boat docked to the steps here. Over here, I can't even tell there's a boat here, right? I can't even tell. But this is very easy to see. I mean, maybe I misfocused, but I don't think I did. But essentially, I was taking this shot from the same spot, and I tried to focus on the house. That's where my focus point should be. Like, look at the rocks and the grass. There's just no comparison. So when people are comparing Micro Four Thirds to other formats, they're going to cherry pick images like this and say, See the difference? See? Never buy Micro Four Thirds. That's what they're going to tell you because they're going to cherry pick things like this. But then I can go back and cherry pick images between a full, whatever format and my Micro Four Thirds and say, see, it's not that much difference, right? So I'll never forget, uh, from 20 years ago, trying to find my streaming chat window. I'll never forget, it's like people want to say something about a camera system, then they'll go and find the statistics and data points and examples that back up whatever they want to say, right? Uh, and I'm no different. I'm very biased for Michael Four Thirds. I love Michael Four Thirds. I can sit here and cherry pick and find a lot of examples where Michael Four Thirds is performing just as well as a full frame, if not better in some cases, in whatever situation we're talking about. If that's the message I want to deliver, I could certainly find plenty of images to back up my position. But then the opposite of a truth is not a lie. The opposite of a truth is another truth, right? So somebody else can come back and do the same thing with full frame and say, see, this is like I was just comparing a Fujifilm with my Leica Deluxe 8, which is a Panasonic Micro Four Thirds basically, but uh and I can say, see, why on God's name would you buy Micro Four Thirds when there's that much difference? But I'm not basing my decision off that one image, right? I'm not telling you I love Micro Four Thirds. I'm not blind to the differences. I see them all the time because I shoot systems side by side all the time. But I choose Micro Four Thirds as my primary camera system because of the overall workflow, user experience, compact, lightweight, all of those things. All of the things we talk about the benefits of Micro Four Thirds. I choose Micro Four Thirds for all those reasons over every other camera system every time. It's not that I don't enjoy the other systems; they have benefits, but yeah, Micro Four Thirds is an extremely capable camera system. You can get great results with it. So don't, it pains me when you get bad press as you reference. The system gets bad press because of like the example I just showed you, right? People are going to cherry pick and say, yeah, see this? Why, what I mean? But that's not everything that you do with a camera, right? You do so many things with a camera. You take so many different kinds of pictures. And for the most part, the Micro Four Thirds is going to stand up pretty well against any other system, if not better, for most things. But anyway, yeah, people worry too much about camera performance versus focusing on technique, composition, etc. Yeah, I mean, there are gearheads out there, and I respect that. They appreciate the technology and the things that a camera can do. I get that, but and they're not really focusing on the photography side, like you said, composition and lighting and uh, everything that's because these are different conversations, gear versus photography. Um, Man, I saw some gorgeous images at the trade show yesterday. I mean, there was hundreds of images. Well, there was maybe 100 or more images there up on display that photographers submitted. I gotta find that text. There's one image. There was three images there, and they won the award for the show. They were the show winner, and they were made by somebody that I've tutored before. I hesitate to call him one of my students because I only did a 6-hour tutoring session with her. So technically she is a student, but all I did was help her with one thing for 6 hours. Uh, because she's an award-winning photographer, but she doesn't know how to use Flash. So I tutored her how to use Flash, in 3 2-hour sessions. But her pictures were up there. And one of the pictures was of a wood duck. And uh, and I saw that. I've seen this picture before. It's because she's local to me. About 6 months ago, she texted me and said, "Rob, we're gonna go up and shoot wood ducks up in Bethesda or wherever this place is." And I'm like, "Oh, that's a little bit too far away. I have some other things I need to do." Uh, but after they came back from that little trip, she texted me a picture of a wood duck that she took. I was like, "Oh, that's really nice. That's a nice shot." And then I looked, and then when I went to the trade show yesterday, her picture was up there on the wall as one of the images on display. And I was like, "Oh yeah, I know her, and I know her." And there was a lot of pictures from people in our photo club that were there too. There was a lot of great photos, but that's the only one that I have a little bit of a story of that I have some personal connection to, where I didn't go on that trip with them, and they got this shot up. And Stewart says, "Michael Four Thirds is my favorite, and I have a shot film, and I still do. I still like the composition from low technology cameras to inspire me to do better." Yes. Um, and confirmation bias is huge on YouTube. Marketing is pushing larger sensors because more companies sell them. It's part of that. Uh, it's part of that, but it's okay. I mean, I think that people like there's a lot of YouTube out there, a lot of channels out there. They run their channel like a business, and they're gonna go with all the latest news and gear, right? Like even somebody that loves Micro Four Thirds cameras, like uh, Chris and Jordan. Chris in particular uses Micro Four Thirds. The only time they talk about Micro Four Thirds is when a new camera comes out, and it's not because they don't love Micro Four Thirds, but their channel Petapixel is a business. So that's probably the best example of where a channel is primarily a business, and they're going to promote or talk about whatever's new. So there's very few channels like enthusiast channels, right? Like mine. I'm primarily enthusiast. Well, more recently I've been doing gear reviews, but uh, I'm primarily an enthusiast for Micro Four Thirds. Robin Wong is primarily enthusiast for Micro Four Thirds. Like Micro Four Nerds for a long time was primarily enthusiast, but she's doing really well and still creating great content. And but she's transitioned more into treating it like a business, and maybe that was her intent from the beginning. But a lot of there's very few like just pure enthusiast channels anymore, if at all, for Micro Four Third. Like Andrew Banner has a terrific channel. I don't know if you guys watch his channel. He has a great channel with lots of great content, but he focuses on photography. He uses Micro Four Thirds, but he focuses on photography. Like I saw a thumbnail this morning about tripods, so I got to check that out. Roberto, who was here earlier, he's an enthusiast that just creates content and uses Micro Four Thirds, right? People that actually use the Micro Four Thirds system, like many of us here, we really love the system and know what it's capable of, and don't care if, yeah, the performance or whatever specs or whatever on another camera system is better. It's because we're not about that. We're about the photography and Micro Four Thirds is way more than capable to do what we want it to do. So Anyhow, let me, where am I? I'm in Maryland, and Micro Four Thirds is my favorite night. Oh, sorry, got that one. So yeah, I'm in Maryland. So come on over. I go to meetups every week with the photo club. I'll give you the photo club name if you want to join me. Where is it? It's on meetup.com. Yeah, Virginia Beltway meetup. So this is what I'm doing this weekend. Oh, we need to fill out the schedule. I need to put some things in there. But I just did one yesterday or day before. Oh, seriously, you want me to log in? I just did this one yesterday. Lots of cool photos. See, there's the one I just showed you, right? And then I did some leaves, some more plants, some ferns here that are on their way out. There was a graveyard there, and this is actually a five-shot pano. It's a friend of mine there in the photo club, and this is from other people. So anyhow, there you go. Just go to meetup.com and look for that group. Join up, sign up. We can go on photo walks together. And I never enter any competition with photos or videos since there are many individuals far better than me. Same here, man. I There's no way any of my photos would have made it into the onto the wall there. I've never entered a competition. And people are always saying, "Why don't you enter? Why don't you enter?" I'm like, well, I don't think my photos are that great. And number two, uh, I don't really care what other people think of my photos, like judges and things, right? Like if I like the photo, then I might be the only one, but I do it for me. I do the photography for my own enjoyment. And I try to, and there's a lot of photos I like that I take, and not everybody else likes them, but that's okay. As long as I like them, that's all that matters, because those are my photos. I like my photos. I know they're not great though, but they're okay. And and that's the thing. It's like I cannot take great photos. Like, don't ask me about composition or how to take a great photo. But if you want to ask me, how do I take a photo? What settings do I use to capture the image this way? I could tell you that, right? Like if you're going to do bird in flight, yeah, set your shutter speed 1/2000, et cetera, et cetera. Uh, you want to do a panel, okay, get a tripod, make sure it's level. A lot of techniques I have down. My skill set is pretty good, as good as any enthusiast, but I'm always striving to improve my photography and make nicer images. I'm still not happy with the images that I take. There's some good ones out there that a lot of people seem to like. It's ironic. They're not always my favorite, personal favorites. Yeah, here's my Flickr page, right? You can see it's just okay. I mean, that's very derivative. People have done that a million times. Again, nothing new here. Same old, same old. You know, I don't know. This is the pop art filter. That's just luck, right? Oh, that's the photo club. Uh, yeah, my photography is okay. Nothing special. I like doing panos. I did like this shot, but that's been done 1,000 times. This exact shot. I'm not the first one, you know? All these shots. This shot has been done 1,000 times. This is a cool shot. This is with the 75 to 300 lens. It's really sharp. That's such a good lens, that 75 to 300 and the OM3. A lot of these are OM3 shots, and this is actually that Ace Pro 2. But yeah, anyhow, if you want to see my photography, you can go to my Flickr page. But you'll get bored pretty quickly because there's nothing original there. Everything I feel like has been done before. Do sensors suffer from the same Caucasian skin bias that early film did? No, does not. Because it's digital and not organic. The organic film organically, right? They had to adjust for white balance. The chemical process is all layered. It's really complicated. But digital doesn't have that problem. Citizen Shore says, yes, I also do photos and videos for myself, occasionally post on Facebook or Instagram for fun, especially if nobody else used my technique, especially now with my slow motion video. Yeah, that's what it's all about. Just enjoying your time with it's our hobby, right? We just enjoy taking photos. So like the deer photo, that's great. Backlighting can be challenging. Yep. I love some of those shots. Yeah, they're okay. They're okay. Um, but there'll be a day when I'll have a certain style, and I don't know, maybe not. Maybe I'll just keep taking just okay photos. They're okay for the rest of my life. But I have fun taking them. You know what I mean? I have fun trying all these different cameras, and playing with different systems. But if I were to, like I said, to this day, uh, it's always right now. It's always my OM3. Before that, it was usually my Pen F that I would take out. So I just love the OM3 with the 12 to 45. I think it's right here. Yeah. Yeah. Oh man. See, I want to go out and take photos now. This is the system, and I want to go out and take pictures. Goes well with my new cardigan, don't you think? Anyhow, why don't we call it, guys? And ladies, thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it. It's always fun chatting with everyone and catching up. Uh, Go out and take some more photos. Eat healthy, exercise. Okay. I want you guys to be here a long time with me, and we will see you guys again. Oh, I was thinking about doing a members only stream tomorrow. Maybe I'll set that up, but I barely got 50 or 60 people here now. I don't think I need to do a members only video. It's not like I would do anything different. But Tuesday I'll do my shopping video, and Friday my photo editing as always. I'm glad you guys enjoy the little bit that I do here for you, and I really appreciate what you guys have done for me over the years, all your support. So thanks for that, and I hope to see you guys all again soon.